If everything is okay, please let me know. Yeah, fine. Hare Krishna. That's great. Okay, now everything is fine. That's great. So hopefully, by the mercy of Lord Krishna, all of you are quite well at your own respective places and living your life very happily. And Bhagavad Gita is all about that, to make a human life success by guiding a human being to know the purpose of life, as well as all those uh, life skills, specifically how to lead a very happy, prosperous, satisfied life. So I'm very much inspired and very much encouraged by seeing all of your presence here. So let's go ahead with our third chapter of discussion. So I'll quickly go ahead with my slide. So here it go. Yeah, so this is what, hopefully you are able to see the slides. And before that I speak anything, I just want to invoke the mercy and blessings of all those predecessor acharyas along with Supreme Godhead Krishna, so that our this meeting would have some very wonderful result in our hearts, purifying our hearts and flooding our hearts with transcendental love, enlightenment, and knowledge. So please join us with small little prayers, very wonderful to hear and chant together as well. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabho Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So let's go ahead. Bhagavad Gita, this Bhagavad Gita as it is, at its chapter, and that what course we have taken up. We are at the third chapter today, and today we shall have this all things. We'll have seeing the recap, of course, as well as then we'll have chapter overview of the third chapter, and after that we'll have chapter content, of course, then call to action and chapter summary. So please get ready. Put your seat belts. Let's go ahead. Chapter 2, we saw what? From the first section, we saw that how this Arjuna is having his all those sufferings just being thrown into the lotus feet of Krishna. That's what he did. He was very friendly. He was talking big fundas, big philosophies. But later on, he understood that I couldn't understand anything. I couldn't figure out what to do, what not to do. Then he actually surrenders to Krishna. So there we saw that one shot suffering management. In any situation you find, just remember Krishna and just be dependent upon him. So that's why the teachings or the message or lesson we got from that section. And then we saw identity crisis solved. The first thing what Krishna took up, the cause to solve the identity crisis of the of Arjuna, as well as for all of us. So from 11 to 30 sloka, he tells about Arjuna, you are not the body, you are soul. You are not the body, you are soul. And as well as the people around here to whom you are seeing, with whom you have to engage in fighting, they are also not the body, they are souls. And for their betterment and for your betterment, you need to fight. Okay? So go ahead and fight. So this is what we saw, identity crisis. Solved, you are not this body, you are soul. Then we have third section, enjoyment through prescribed duties. So maybe like it's for high funda people. No, you are not this body, you are soul, this great philosophy. But ultimately, we succumb to identify ourselves with the body only. Even though we identify ourselves with the body, the enjoyment, that maza, that comes only when we are actually doing our duty nicely. That's what is all about a progressive human being, right? Whatever you are supposed to do, you are not able to do, then like I can poll, most of you can tell that if whatever duty what we have, if we are not able to perform those duties, then automatically we will remain unsatisfied and unhappy, isn't it? So this is what it happens. So that's what Krishna tells, that enjoyment will come by your prescribed duties. You are a Kshatriya, you are the fighter. You must fight. If you fight and you win, then you will rule the kingdom. If you fight and die, you will go to heaven. So in the both way, in either case, you will have no problem. You will get enjoyment only. So that's what we saw. Now let's go ahead. The next section, what we saw in chapter 2, perfection through prescribed duties. Siddhi. So what is this perfection through prescribed duties? It is all about key to perfected life is in offering the fruits of action to Krishna. So in turn, Krishna understood that maybe Arjuna is quite a little advanced person. He's just not an ordinary guy. Now, so he might be thinking that if I'll do for my own belly, for my own duty, there's all these nefarious, sinful activities, killing my own kinsmen, then what will happen to me? I will just accrue a lot of sin, and because of those sins, I have to go to hell. So in that situation, Krishna, understanding his mind, he's telling that now I will tell you what is the way of coming out from the sins, and even burning all the sins what you have accrued till now. So then he tells that do your duties without getting attached with the fruit of your actions, and rather the fruit of action just surrender unto me. Okay. So then we saw that. And after that, the last section, we saw symptoms of perfected and blissful soul. So all the symptoms were told. What are the symptoms of perfected and blissful soul? Okay, what are the symptoms? So that we saw, and how a blissful soul is perfectly happy being dependent upon the supreme divinity. Okay, and his way of speaking, way of walking, everything. And at last also we saw that how there are at different stages of fall down. Okay, there are different levels, different steps to fall down from our duties, from our position into hellish condition of life. Okay, so now let's go ahead for chapter 3 overview. So from 1st to 9th, we have first section. This chapter 30 divided into 4 sections. Work, work, work. Okay. Kam karo, kam karo, kam karo. Okay, but what is that? Then we have from 10th sloka to 16th sloka. That's called human life is for sacrifices, for higher causes. And then we have leadership sutras. Okay. Then we have conquer your greatest enemy, lust, from 36th to 43rd sloka. Okay. So today, very wonderful concepts are being unveiled in front of all of us. So please be there for the whole session. So now let's go ahead for the first section. What's called work, work, work. Okay. So what is this work, work, work? What is this all about? So the key sloka of this whole section is the 7th sloka of 3rd chapter. This sloka goes like this. Yastvindriyani manasa niyamyarabhate arjuna karmendriyaiha karma yogam asakta sa vishishyate. So Krishna tells, on the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins karma yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far superior. Okay. So this is the situation now where Krishna is going to tell to Arjuna about a ladder, CD. Ladder of what? Different types of activities and yoga. Okay. So this is called yoga ladder. This starts from a most worse life, that's called thief life. Then it goes to karma kanda, karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, and bhakti yoga. Okay, these are the levels. And at last, there is perfection. So what is that? That is called active life, the thief life, the first life. I mean, first life is active life without sacrifice. A person who is not doing any sacrifice in his life, being a human, is actually told in this chapter to be a thief. Istena evasa uchyate. Means he's, because he's taking all those resources from the nature, which is actually nothing but different facilities created by the god, and so in return he's not giving any sacrifice. So it's like that. Then the second stage is called active life with little sacrifice. That's called karma kanda. Then third comes karma yoga, active life with fruit of action sacrifice to Vishnu. Then comes jnana yoga, passive life with jnana sacrificed. Okay. Then called dhyana yoga, passive life with meditation sacrificed. And then at last comes bhakti yoga, active life. So we have beginning also active and we have the end also active. Okay. So now Krishna is trying to make make a very shortcut plan, to give a shortcut plan to Arjuna. He's telling, see, beginning also everybody is active, and the real life or the free life of every entity is also active. That's called bhakti yoga, active life with mind, words, and action sacrificed. So why you need to stop working? See, from 0 to 10, these are the gradations of our hearts being purified. If our heart is filled with all not so good things, then we are on the lowest level. Then little bit more purified heart comes to karma kanda, then a little more karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga. Like this, it comes to perfection. But action should not be left out, because action is something which can purify us in the long run. Okay, so now comes what is called the action. So Krishna is trying to convince Arjuna that, oh Arjuna, no one can abstain from work. If you are thinking of abstaining from work, means Arjuna has told that I don't mind leaving this all battlefield, everything. I'll just go out and live by begging. Krishna, I don't care for the kingdom. I don't care. How can I live killing my own kinsmen, my own grandfathers, my own fathers, sons? No, there are all such, like what's called Sala, Shashur, these all people. I just want to just get rid of this. So Krishna is telling, so what, Arjuna, what is your proposal? You want to become just like, not doing any work and just remain free. So imitating others. So in this condition, I will tell you, even if you take breath, that is also work done by your chest, work done by your lungs. So that's also work. So you cannot abstain from work. So you must work. So life lesson for all of us is what? To purify our heart, we should take to the prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas instead of abstaining from work altogether. Okay, so just living out everything and not working in our prescribed duties is forbidden by Krishna in this section. Okay, now comes sorry. Now comes, but prescribed duties, Arjuna is thinking, but prescribed duties may stand with sin. If I'm doing prescribed duty, any activity we are doing is actually added with some sin. Because while performing any activity, even drinking, even water, there are so many germs we just drink them in, and there is hydrochloric acid inside our belly. Just by it starts, all those microbes to simply get killed. Or else while cooking, there are so many flies roaming around here and there. They just get dropped into the fire and they're killed. So like there are so many ways we could commit sin. So that's why Arjuna is telling that, Krishna, you are telling to me that I must do prescribed duties, but while doing prescribed duty also there is sin. So what is the solution of that? So now what Krishna has to tell, then Krishna now builds up the solution of that. That's called nothing but karma yoga. Okay, so karma yoga means yagya arthat karmano natra lokoyam karma bandhanaha. So that's what Krishna also telling, that see Arjuna, yagya arthat, do activities for yagya, for the cause of yagya, means for the sacrifice, means, or Vishnu. Yagya Purusha means Vishnu. Lokoyam yagyathat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha. If you do otherwise, then you will be bound by your activities. Whatever activities you will do, good activities, bad activities, you will be bound. You have to suffer for your bad activities, and you have to enjoy so-called enjoyment for your good activities. So both will bound you with a cycle of repeated birth and death. So you must act, but act for the satisfaction of Vishnu. Okay, so there he gives the clue. So now we have the life lesson from this section itself. Working for Yajna or Vishnu, doing prescribed duties for belly is better than leaving the work. The first thing, just leaving out. Are there some people those who get very much lazy, and they get very much lazy? They won't work at all. Just wait a minute. Just let me. Hare Krishna. So sorry for little bit disturbance. So then Krishna is telling that the life lesson for all of us here is we must do our prescribed duties. That is better than leaving our work. And better than that is what's called working for Yajna or working for Vishnu. Yeah. So that's the difference between both of those concepts and is what is called sinful bondage. So if we'll do any duty for our own self, but not keeping Vishnu or Krishna in the center or the purpose of that activity or the sacrifice, then the difference between both of them comes what is called sinful bondage that we can avoid. Okay, that's what the life lesson for all of us from this section. Now let's go ahead for the second section. Okay, the second section is called human life is for sacrifice. How it is so? How human life is meant for sacrifice? So sacrifice, it doesn't mean that now you just go and just kill yourself. That's not the sacrifice. Rather, what is the real sacrifice that Krishna is going to tell in this chapter as well as the next chapter? Okay, so in 10th to 11th sloka, Krishna is telling about mutual cooperation between divinity and the living entity, divinity and the human beings. Okay, divinity in the sense that different in charges of different faculties or different departments of universe. Like we have different departments of our universe. Like suppose in our any government there are different departments. Like suppose we have health ministry, we have educational ministry, then we have water resource ministry, then we have human resource ministry, then we have finance ministry, then we have a home ministry. Like this, the whole universe is also is not just just an unplanned entity. It's a government, and there is a chief of government also. We are not able to see those chiefs government. I mean, the chief ministers and prime ministers and cabinet ministers. It doesn't mean that they won't exist. They exist. If a small little nation like India to rule and to run, so there are so many ministers required, so many people in prime minister required, president required. So do you think such a wonderful, wonderful universe, which is so nicely working, so lucidly, working with, with such a great cooperation, coordination, how that could be without any control? So yeah, there are people, those who are in control. They are called small god gods or the demigods. Okay, like for water we have Indra. He's the water in charge, rain in charge. For Agni, the fire, we have the fire god, Agni Dev. Similarly for Vayu, for the air, we have Vayu Dev. Like this, there are different, different in charges, different department heads. But all the heads are actually submitting to one head called Narayana. Okay. And above Narayana also there is one head who have nothing to do. He has only to enjoy the life with devotees. His name is Krishna. He just takes up his flute and very sweetly, very nicely just keep enjoying with his loving devotees eternally. And he in this way gives Bhagavad Gita sometimes coming to the earth, and just to reclaim the people, those who are out here struggling so much hard, to just get them into his own wonderful eternal pastimes. Okay, so that Krishna, he's telling that, see, in beginning of creation, I made a plan plan the people, those who are living in this world, they can live very happily and flourishingly. How? By the mutual sacrifice, mutual plan. What is the mutual plan? So this is the mutual plan. Humans perform yajna, demigods led by Vishnu showers abundance. So humans will perform yajna. Yajna is actually made by their prescribed duties. So by prescribed duties, they will perform yajna, and those yajnas will satisfy demigods. I mean the gods, those who are in different department in charges. So they will shower abundance to them. So this is the system was made. Okay, so awareness will move like this. So just now we saw that everything is actually coming from somewhere. We are just we are not, we are actually taking everything from somewhere. We are just not like, everything was there and it's our father's property. Like even our body has also been gone, begotten by a mother, and mother, all the elemental things coming from where? The elemental source, elemental gods, earth, water, fire, air, ether. Air we have, where we are taking from sky. Elemental source is air. In charge of that is Vayu. Like this we have seen that water, food, sunlight, minerals, everything is, if we all together, if we'll combine, then it's called Mahat Tattva, and that's coming from Pradhan. And whole total material elements, that in charge of total material elements is called Durga. Okay, so this all system is very wonderfully mechanized by Supreme Godhead Narayana, and it's working. So everything belongs to Narayana, but in down there are department heads. So the sacrifices are actually ultimately going to Narayana, but it's, at least if directly not going, at least it should go through the gods, through the demigods. So that's what the system was made. Okay, so now what is the simple formula? What is this here? Simple formula for peace and prosperity. What that's called? Perform sacrifice. So what is this yajna or sacrifice cycle that we shall be seeing now? Let's go ahead. So what happens? It is told Annad Bhavanti Bhutani. Annad means the grains. From the grains, all those living entities, from small little microbes till human beings, till elephant or the whale, whatever, they are being nourished and maintained by the grains. Grains or the plants, ultimately the same thing. So Annad Bhavanti Bhutani. Even the human beings also are being maintained by grains only. Okay, ultimately. So then it comes Parjanyat Anna Sambhavaha. From the rain, Anna means the grains are produced from the rain. Unless the rain is there, grains cannot be produced, right? And it is told that Parjanyat Yagyat Bhavanti Parjanyaha. From the Yagya, Parjanya happens, or the rain takes place by the Yagya. Okay, so somebody may ask that how it is, what is this fund of getting rain by Yagya? Where is this? Yeah, this is true. No matter we have the system of evaporation of water from the ocean, we know that it comes up and it gets converted into cloud, and after that it showers. So we can understand, but almost 60 or 65% of whole globe is nothing but water, ocean only. So there is a more chance of raining in the ocean, very less chance. But it could happen that all the rains drops in the ocean only. But we are greatly fortunate that those rains are actually being brought in front just above our heads, and it gets showered. Okay, and because of that, we have grains. We can have everything, fertile land, we can have nice seeds, but unless there is rain, we cannot have grain. Okay, this is truth. And what is there? What is the significance of yajna there? Because of yajna only, these all things are being maintained by the mercy of Supreme Lord Narayana, who is actually directing the other gods, other department heads. Okay, so there is one small little story. When Srila Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON, when he was moving around throughout the globe, preaching the Sanatana Dharma, the Bhagavad Gita, science of Bhagavad Gita, all over the world, then in year 1971 in Hyderabad, he appeared. He came from USA, preaching the holy name, preaching the Bhagavad Gita, and he came to Hyderabad. In Hyderabad, that about the time, for 3 consecutive years, there is no rain for 3 consecutive years, and it was drought ridden. There was sukha, and he did massive Harinam Sankirtan there, along with his disciples and devotees, all nearby devotees. And it was amazing to see. Next day, there was downpour of rain like anything. And the next day, there was a very big tagline in the prominent newspapers that Swami brings rain in drought. Okay, so this is very, 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 very direct. Because of people around the globe are still there. Some people are doing yajna. That's why we are able to have this what's called the rain. Okay, so now let's go ahead in the cycle of this sacrifice, which can bring us prosperity. So we should do prescribed duties. By prescribed duty, we can have yajna. Okay, and these prescribed duties are mentioned in Vedas. Okay, so that's what Lord Krishna tells. And these Vedas actually given by the Purusha, Yajna Purusha, Mahavishnu. Okay, so Yajna Purusha Vishnu is giving the Vedas. So ultimately, Brahman or Supreme Lord Narayana or Vishnu is into every section of the whole Yajna cycle. Okay, so what is the shortcut of this complicated Yajna cycle that is mentioned here? Bhutani, Annat Bhanti Bhutani, the living entities, if specifically the human beings is supposed to offer sacrifice, if he'll offer the grains or the preparation made by grains to the Supreme Lord, it's as simple as that. He can get prosperity like anything. So that's the simple, made easy, this Yajna made easy for all of us. The life lesson for all of us from this section is, by eating food offered to Vishnu or Yajna, and in Taittiriya Upanishad, that is told what is yajna. We should not misunderstand to be something. Yajna means work. Even in the next chapter, fourth chapter, you will be able to see. Yajna means doesn't mean that only fire sacrifices. Yajna are of different kinds. Okay, but things done for the pleasure of Vishnu, that's called yajna. And yajna over Vishnu in Taittiriya Upanishad, it is also mentioned. Yajna is nothing but Vishnu. So by that we can become sinless and prosperous. Lest ungratefulness leads to scarcity and degradation caused by sins. Okay, so people having everything in this world. Everything is there. Surplus grains, surplus clothing, surplus water, surplus air. What is less? Everything is there, but there are still people are suffering in this world. Why? Because of greediness of humankind. There are some countries, they purposefully throw their grains, the excessive grains, into oceans so that the prices could be remain maintained and they won't lose much. So, but we know that there are so many people still hungry. There are many, like in African country, there are so many people that die out of hunger. So what is the reason of that? Because of that, why? Because of the lack of sacrifice. I mean, lack of understanding, this greater understanding, the knowledge. Okay, so now let's go ahead. So this is okay and this is not okay. Okay. So unless we become grateful, we cannot have happiness and blissful life. So God has given us so much. At least we should thank God. Thank Krishna. Krishna, you have given so much. So a thankful person is the most prosperous person. Thankful person. He is grateful of what he has got, as well as he is in the form of giving mood, in the mood of giving, giving out prosperity. So those people, those who are in the giving mood and thankful mood, they are the most prosperous people. Okay, and that's called giving, means what's called the sacrifice. Okay, let's go ahead. So now we are in the third section of today's discussion. We are going really very, very fast, hopefully. But of course, we have further different courses. In this, we can go a little slow, little more elaborate discussions of the chapters. So now we are in the section third, in which Krishna is describing about leaders. Leadership sutras also we will be learning from there, from 17th sloka till 35th sloka. Okay, so now let's go ahead. So what is this? Very celebrated sloka from Bhagavad Gita. Very, very celebrated sloka. I hope you could also recite it. 21st sloka. Yad yad acharati shreshthas tat tad evetaro janah sayat pramanam kurute lokas tad anuvartate. So leaders, they act, they set examples by their action. Okay, whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Okay, so Krishna is telling Arjuna, even though you feel like you should leave your duties, still you must not leave. If even though you feel that you can be happy without having these all material facilities of royal kingship and your name and fame, people are glorifying such a great king Yudhishthira and Arjun, still even though you feel like your Atma Ram, means there are some people, very rare souls, those who have nothing to do with the mundane material gadgets and different things, they're happy by their own, they're content in their own heart. They're called Atmaram. Okay, so even though you feel like you are Atmaram, still you must work to set example for others, because others are not Atmaram. Others are there having their so many things to achieve. They must work, they must act. If you will not act in a proper way as your prescribed duty tells, then what will happen? You will create a very wrong example. Okay, so now let's go ahead. So those who are this is what we saw, those who are self-satisfied still work, but to lead others on the path of purificatory action. Because unless we work and by our duty work, what comes? Sacrifice can be happen. And that can take us slowly to the purification of heart. So those who are, actually there are many people, those who are not supposed to work, that Krishna gives example of, but still they work to set example for common masses. Okay, now let's go ahead. So Krishna gives the example. He tells Janakadaya, like Janak Maharaj. Janak Maharaj was the king of Mithila. This is the province north in North India, in North Bihar side near Nepal. That's Mithila. So there was the king Janak. He was such a powerful king, as well as he was self-satisfied person. He was a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra. And his own dynasty, in his own dynasty, they are called Videha. All different kings were always called Janaka only. Okay, so they were also always great devotees. So this Janaka, Krishna is giving example of. Like this, there are so many kings like Prahlad Maharaj. In just 5 years old, when he got direct darshan of Supreme Lord Narayana in the form of Nrsimhadev. But still he became the king. He actually ruled the whole kingdom very nicely, very very wonderfully, and he made the whole kingdom very God conscious. So he worked. Bhishma Pitama, who can forget him? Bhishma Pitama was such a person. He was perfectly content in himself. He didn't even marry, but still he worked. Still he worked for whole life. He fought for Hastinapur. And we know Srila Prabhupada, somebody can say that, no, you are giving all old examples. But there are many people, those are still there in the world. Those are working in that way. And they are glorious people. Like we see the example of George Harrison. There was a singer in a very, very famous, famous band. It was Beatles. It was very famous in 1960s, late 1960s and early 1970s. So this person, he was chanting the names of God, and people were thronging for him. You cannot imagine. For his birthday, there was 10 trucks of invitations, 10 trucks of greeting cards. So that was such a very popular person. But he actually chanted the holy name. At the end of life, he also chanted the holy name. He came to Vrindavan and in Sudam Mayapur. Like that, we have Rishikesh Mafatla, he's an entrepreneur, also a great Vaishnava. Like that, we have Polish model Anne Shofus. She's also a very wonderful devotee of Lord, as well as her profession. So now we have this Albert Brasford. So these three people are still alive. George Harrison just left the body some few years before. So he's a businessman, Vaishnava, Albert Brasford. He's one of the biggest shareholder of Ford company. So let's go ahead. There are great leaders, and who can forget Srila Prabhupada? I will tell more about Srila Prabhupada. Such a powerful leader he was. Okay, so Now let's go ahead in the special section of Krishna. So Krishna tells also that, see Arjuna, for me, there is no work intended. I can just sit and everything can come by its own will. Everything can come by my own mere desire. But still I work. Still I work. Still I do so many activities. Why? To show people that you should not stop working. You must work for gradual progress or gradual purification of heart. So in this episode, we must very nicely understand what is the difference between following and imitating. Somebody can say that, okay, Krishna had so many things. Can we do those all things? First of all, many people, if you ask that, oh, Krishna exists, they say, Krishna won't exist. But if you say Krishna did something like, Ras Leela or something, oh, then he is such a fool, rascal number one. So immediately Krishna starts existing for them. So now you must understand, figure it out. What is the difference between following and imitating, specifically for Krishna? As Krishna gives Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. So we can follow it. How we can follow it? We can just repeat the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, Bhagavad Gita is recorded and is still there, all the 700 slokas. But it cannot be imitated. You cannot just, be, you cannot just be Krishna and you can just tell you have your own Arjuna and you just tell, let us fight. No, let us make a fight. No, nobody can do that. Okay, so you cannot show the universal form that Krishna showed. In 11th chapter, we know that Krishna is showing universal from the whole universe is actually into his captive. So it is showing that. So similarly, lifting Govardhan hill, this is one act. So we can follow by taking shelter of Krishna, as all the Brajvasis, they took shelter of Krishna, right? While when Krishna lifted Govardhan with the small little finger of the left hand. But we cannot imitate Krishna by lifting another mountain. We can never do that. That too for 7 days and 7 nights when you are just 7 years old. Okay, so we cannot even lift a small little paper for 7 days and 7. Just we cannot keep our hands straight like this for 7 hours, forget of 7 minutes. I mean, so very difficult. So now Krishna also married 16,000 wives. Yeah, so we can follow that. We can follow by marrying with one. But somebody tells, no, I'll also marry with same number of girl, or then it's very difficult. It's not possible. It's called imitating. So like suppose Krishna also danced on the Kalia. Kalia, there was a very powerful snake, the poisonous snake. And Krishna danced upon the hoods of, always dynamic hoods of Kalia. And he danced so beautifully. Even at the time of dancing was playing flute. So can we do that? We cannot do that. We can just hear those pastimes and we can be satisfied taking shelter of Krishna. But if somebody dares even go near a poisonous snake, he will certainly die. So this is the difference between imitating and what's called following. Okay, now let's go ahead. Now comes a very important section from this, very important session from this section. Okay, specifically 9 divine leadership qualities, what Krishna is telling. So first, what's that quality? The leader must lead by his own action. He should not tell something and do something else behind the curtain. And there are many times people, they give big speeches, but for their own life, they do nothing. There was one speaker, he given such a big, speech of we should not smoke a cigarette, but in his home, he himself was smoking. Then his wife told that, hey, today you told in the speech that you should not smoke, but you yourself are doing that. What will be the efficacy of your statements? And then he told that, oh, that's for them, not for me. That was my duty to speak, but not for me to do the same thing. So leaders means yad yad acharati shreshtaha. The leaders must do acharan, the activities, as what actually a leader is supposed to do. So leaders, second quality of leader is leaders, no, accept scriptural verdicts. Leaders, they always work according to scriptures, not whimsically. Just like, we have a very, iconic example of Hitler. He just concepted a concept of Aryans, and he thought that we are the Aryans, Germans are the Aryans, and we are going to rule. And being getting, messing Aryan philosophy as well as the Darwinian philosophy together. And in Darwinian philosophy, it is told that survival is the fittest. You are the fittest person, you will survive, rest everything will be killed, everyone will be killed. So because of this nonsensical ideas, what did he do? He practically killed millions of Jews people. And so this we can understand. Sometimes leaders could be so frantic, so fanatic, that they could have such a dangerous result in the life of so many people. So leaders act by scriptural verdicts. Okay. So now let's go ahead. Third leadership quality is that leader leads as the instrument of Krishna. Okay. He leads as an instrument Krishna, not he never takes his own independent stage. Just like we see Arjuna as Hanuman. They are the great leaders, are still well known to the people, but there are many leaders, they come and go. Just they come for some few 10, 50, 100 years, and after that they just get buried into the pages of history books. But these are the great leaders, so they always work as an instrument of God. Okay, so that's actually the secret of their success. Even there are great scientists nowadays. We see there are many great scientists had been there, like Newton, Einstein. They also had been understanding that whatever we are actually getting, the conscience or the inspiration is nothing but it's coming from the God. Okay, so now let's go ahead to the fourth one. Leaders acts for the greater cause. Leaders, they act for the greater cause. They don't just live life for their own belly itself. Okay, they have a greater cause into their life, either for the society or the nation. And the foremost and the topmost cause is Supreme God. By fulfilling that cause, they actually live for every living entities practically. Okay, now the qualities of fifth quality of a leader is work without attachment to fruits. So here many leaders, they get stuck. Many people, they don't want to work. Why? Because they are going to get discredited, or they may fear that who will take the credit. Okay, so they want credit. That's why Krishna tells that Kripana phala hetavaha. Oh Arjuna, only those who are misers, they think about credits. Only those who are misers, they think about the fruits. You must work in your duty. Okay, so this is the very influence, a very fundamental leadership quality, that we must be detached from the fruits, but we must act with our duties. Okay, now with the sixth leadership quality. Leader leads others by gradual development. Leader leads others for gradual development. Okay, he engages everyone, just like we see in the pastime of Lord Ramachandra. Lord Ramachandra, he engaged every people practically into the service of bridging Indian Ocean. Monkeys, bears, squirrels, whatnot. Everybody was engaged. So leader's quality is this. He don't just discriminate between the different species or different races. No. So seventh is acts with their duties without encroaching with others. So he acts with his duty. A leader acts with whatever he can do. He will do perfectly. He just not disturb others, or he will not just tell that, hey, useless people, you cannot do anything, let me do all of everybody's job. So he won't do like that. Okay, whoever is good in what, that is his duty, and he must do that. He must do it very nicely without encroaching into others' duties. Okay, now the eighth divine leadership quality is what? The leaders must be free from dualities of attachment and hatred. Okay, so the two things. If you are favorite of someone, if you are making someone to be favorite, then someone is going to be your unfavorite. Or if you attach to someone, then you start hating someone else. But true leaders are beyond this hatred and attachment. We can see in the life of Lord Ramachandra. Lord Ramachandra is called Maryada Purushottam. From his life we can learn all those very wonderful life lessons. Okay, so specifically leadership qualities too. So when Lord Ramchandra, he came back to Ayodhya after 14 years of Vanavas, the first person to whom he met, who was he or she? She was none other than Kaikeyi. Okay, who was the cause of Lord Rama's Vanavas. So she was actually the first person with whom Lord Ramchandra met and paid him obeisances, touched his feet. Okay, so this is the quality of a leader. He should be not caught up into dualities. And the leaders are at last very, very enthusiastic into his activities. Okay, this all leadership qualities, if somebody have the 8 qualities, if somebody possess, then automatically he will be very much enthusiastic. He will act without lethargy. He will not get into a lethargy. Why should he work? Why should not work? There is no type of ambiguity into his decisions. Okay, so that's what is called the leadership quality, the 9 leadership qualities that Krishna describes. Okay, now all those qualities are seen in a personality who given Krishna to many, many millions and millions of living entities throughout the globe in just recent years, and his name is Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so he's the person. He got the instruction from his spiritual master in 1922 that you are young, educated, English-speaking boy. Why don't you preach the message of Sanatana Dharma to the wasteland? Why you are just wasting the time here? So then he was a householder man. From 1922, he now in 1966, some around 40 years, then when he was 69 years old, without having any money, he took sannyas. And this person, without any lethargy, he struggled so much to get a free passage in a cargo ship called Jaladuta, and he took the march to US to spread the knowledge of Sanatana Dharma. So there is a small, there is very elaborate biography of Srila Prabhupada. So that's another very big course upon that. So let's go ahead. And now we have just completed till section 3rd. We are at the end. Now the section 4 is going to be get unveiled in front of us. That's also very, very important for all of us. That's called conquering lust, our greatest enemy. From 36 to 43rd sloka, this is very, very important for all of us. So now Arjuna is telling Krishna, that's true. We must do our duty like a leader, even though we are content. But what is the factor because of which there are many people, those who are not able to perform their duties rightly. They succumb to do sinful activities rather, but they won't do their activity, their duties perfectly. What is that factor? What is that factor? What is that some element which is forcing one to do sinful activities? So then Krishna tells about a person, element or tattva, that's called lust. Krishna tells, know your greatest enemy, Arjuna. Who is that greatest enemy? He is the lust. He's called Mahabhairi, Mahashano. He is the greatest devourer of living entities. Whoever comes in its way, they are simply burned. So Mahashano, Mahapapama, it creates a lot of sins. So now we are going to see the autobiography of lust. Okay, who is lust? His father name, his sister name, his younger brother name, everything we'll see. The father of lust is who? This is called mode of passion and ignorance. Okay, he's the father of lust, mode of passion. So now, younger brother of lust, who is younger brother of lust? You can note it down. Is anger. So somebody is into lust, then the second stage, that's called anger. Okay, so that's why it's called anger. And krodha is also called Kamanuja. Kamanuja means, we know Ramanuja. Ramanuja means the Ramanuja means what's called the brother of Lord Ram, right? Similarly, the brother of Kam is called Kamanuja. So anger is called Kamanuja. So lust, real Sarupa is loving service toward Krishna. So love only gets transformed, deformed into lust. And that's what we'll also see. And what is the true way of conquering this lust is also nothing but transferring to love. Okay, so it's influential coverage, how, where it goes. Okay, that's what Krishna tells. It is spread everywhere throughout the whole universe. Okay, its coverage is everywhere. Just like we have some, routers, Wi-Fi routers, have different coverage, like 500 meter, 50 meter. So mode of action, it covers the knowledge. Lust covers the knowledge, the real knowledge of the soul, and it forces the living entity by covering the knowledge to do sinful activities. Okay. Now, where it is situated, the strategic points of action of lust, it is situated in three places: senses, mind, and intelligence. Senses, there are five knowledge acquiring senses we have, like eyes, ears, tongue, nose, skin. So it it is there on that, as well as it's there on the mind also, and also on intelligence. Okay, so there are 3 degrees of action. There are 3 degrees of action in which lust actually covers the knowledge of living entities. So what are the 3 degrees of covering of lust? It covers the living entities as embryo. Embryo means, if somebody is there in embryo, I mean, embryo means no moment is seen. Any baby is there, and any small little child is there in the womb, then there is no moment seen from far off. So means that child is fully covered into the embryo. So this is one type of covering. It is the like a heavy covering. Then second is called covering like a mirror. So lust covers like a mirror. No, mirror upon mirror, dust gets accumulated. So you cannot see your face itself, right? For that you have to clean it. That's why it's written, clean me. So you have to clean, then we can see our face. Similarly, lust covers the dust. Lust covers the mirror of our heart. So we need to clean it. Then third way of covering is covering of a fire with smoke or fog or smoke. So sometimes the fire, when it's there, then there is smoke, a lot of smoke. But it's very easy to just get rid of this smoke. Just you have to give a blow, all the smokes just gets away. But it's a little difficult to clean the mirror. Little difficult. You need to take a wiper and you need to wipe it. And it's very, very difficult to see a child without that child has come out from the embryo. So there are 3 types of living entities who are covered by this lust. So Krishna tells that, Srila Prabhupada tells in the commentary, he tells that there are trees who are actually covered with this lust like embryo. There are quadrupeds, four-legged animals, who are covered by this lust as if mirror is covered by dust. And there are human entities, we all of us, we are also covered with the lust as smoke is covering the fire. Okay, so it's very easy for all of us to conquer the enemy. So congratulations. So now let's go ahead. Lust sits on 3 things that we have discussed. So inside we are ourselves, that's called soul. And above soul there is intelligence, and above intelligence there is mind, and above mind we have senses, the active senses: ears, nose, tongue, eyes, skin. So these are the active senses what we have. So this lust sits upon these 3 things: senses, mind, intelligence. Now what is the remedy, what is the solution, what is the way to actually conquer this lust? So there are 3 places where these 3 places, the strategic points, are already warned by lust. So how to conquer it? So we have to conquer these all strategic points, then we can conquer. Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita that there is a way of conquering it, and there is a hierarchy of these things. The senses are just like horses. There are different, like 5 senses. There are 5 horses of a chariot. Then the reins are the mind, and the reins are actually in the hand of a person, and that person is intelligence. And the person who is sitting behind on the chariot, that person is soul, we personally. So we can understand our, if these all strategic points, intelligence, mind, and senses are fully captured by lust, our greatest enemy, the what will be a situation. Any time this lust can just get this chariot into a ditch, and soul will suffer. And this is the situation we see nowadays. People, they have so many things doing activities, so many things. Why? Because they have been already hijacked by their greatest enemy, and they think that to be the greatest friend. That's the biggest problem. So now let's see. This is the analogy I just told you all. So how to conquer this? Now, very, very important to write it down in your notebook. Senses. What we can do with the senses? Senses we can regulate. And how to regulate? That we'll be discussing also later on. You can ask also later on. So how to control the mind? How to win over the strategic point mind where lust is seated? That's very simple, by chanting mantra, specifically Maha Mantra. So there is Mahabhairi, and for that Mahabhairi we have Mahamantra also. So mantra means it is made by two words, man plus tra. Man means the mind and tra means which delivers the mind. Okay, so if you chant Maha Mantra, specifically Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is most prescribed in different Upanishads as well as Puranas to be the most greatest deliverer of the humankind of the age of Kali Yuga, we must chant. Then you can find the difference. Your mind will be perfectly won over by you. Mind will be your greatest friend. Then third is called intelligence. How to win over intelligence? By giving a shower to intelligence, shower of Bhagavad Gita knowledge, Bhagavad Gita knowledge. That's what we are doing now. So you are most fortunate souls who has taken up this Bhagavad Gita course and have been going ahead reading Bhagavad Gita together, and as well as bringing Bhagavad Gita in your own life. At least 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, as much time you can give. That's great, 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 great wealth for your own life. Okay, that's very, very important to just give a shower to our intelligence every day with Bhagavad Gita slokas. Just one sloka and translation purportedly, that's very great for the beginning. Okay, so if somebody does the three things, he can be actually get over from this most vicious, most powerful enemy. Okay, so now let's go ahead. We are at the end of our today's session. Now let's come to the summary. So we saw from first to 9 sloka, work, work, work. Okay. So Krishna is telling you must work, you must do your duties. Okay. You must not just go away from your duties, but you must work with understanding that the fruits doesn't belong to me. Okay. Now from 10th and 16th sloka, he tells that human being, even though you feel like we have to do your prescribed duties. Human life is meant for sacrifice. Unless one do sacrifice, he cannot be happy. And that's the way of prosperity plan has been already created in this world. Somebody, human being sacrifices, then the demigods led by Vishnu gives prosperity to the human beings. Then we saw leadership sutras. Okay, so already these lessons are here. Perform work with the offering to Vishnu. Then third call leadership sutras, where we saw 9 most prominent leadership sutras, which is very, very important for all of us to imbibe in our own life. If we really, everybody can do that. We cannot say that we are not the leaders. Everybody is leader. Mother is a leader, father is a leader for the child. Even a student is a leader. If you are elder brother, you are leader for younger brother. So everybody is leader. Even one person who has actually got in first standard, he is leader for nursery people. If you are, if you are 10 years old, you are leaders for 9-year-old. So everybody is leader. So we must know these leadership sutras from Bhagavad Gita. And after that, we must know how to conquer our greatest enemy, lust. Okay, how we can conquer? By regulating our senses. We must chant the holy name. We must read Bhagavad Gita by giving strength to our intelligence. And in this way, we can conquer over our greatest enemy. And our life will be greatly advanced in understanding. Okay, and then we can be the instrument for many people to inspire and lead their lives in very wonderful way, and world will be a very better place to live. Okay, thank you so much, all of you. Okay, so this is the call to action. That's what I already told you. Hare Krishna. So thank you so much, all of you, for being for 1 hour with all of us with this third chapter of Bhagavad Gita discussion. So if you have any question, anything, of course, the Google form will be going to be with you. You can just ask your questions and that will be answered. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.